The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction. 847 different species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a sound like distant thunder. Some floated in zero-gravity pods, others stood on legs, tentacles, or mechanical supports. A few existed as pure energy, their thoughts translated into words by the Council's ancient systems. At the center of it all sat the humans. Ambassador Sarah Chen adjusted her simple black suit and looked around the chamber. 3 years of negotiations had led to this moment. 3 years of presenting Earth's case for membership in the galaxy's most important organization. 3 years of answering questions, taking tests, and proving that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Now it would all be decided by a single vote. The Zephyrian Chancellor rose from his crystal throne. His species had been part of the Council for over 50,000 years, longer than any other. His skin glowed with a soft blue light, and when he spoke, his voice carried across the chamber without any need for amplification. "We are here today to decide the fate of Species 847, the Chancellor announced. "The beings who call themselves humans from the third planet of the system they call Sul." Sarah felt her heart beating faster. Around her, the other members of Earth's delegation sat perfectly still. They had done everything they could. Now they could only wait. "For 3 years we have studied this species," the Chancellor continued. "We have observed their technology, their culture, their military capabilities. We have watched how they treat their own kind and how they might treat others." The Chancellor paused, his ancient eyes scanning the chamber. "The evidence is troubling." A wave of whispers swept through the hall. Sarah felt a cold weight settling in her stomach. In just 200 years since achieving spaceflight, the humans have developed weapons capable of destroying entire planets. They have created artificial intelligence systems that learn and adapt at frightening speeds. Their genetic engineering programs advance faster than our own scientists can study them. The Chancellor's voice grew colder, but most concerning of all is their behavior. They refuse to accept Council oversight of their military. They insist on maintaining their primitive democratic governments, instead of adopting efficient Council-approved systems. They make decisions based on emotion rather than logic. Sarah wanted to stand up and defend her species, but she knew it would do no good. The Council had already made up its mind. "The humans claim they come in peace," the Chancellor said. "But their history tells a different story. Wars, genocide, environmental destruction. They nearly destroyed their own planet before reaching the stars. What will they do to ours?" A Vorthan representative raised one of his 4 arms. His species looked like giant insects with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lights. "Chancellor, the humans have shown remarkable restraint during the observation period. They have not attempted to expand beyond their home system without permission." "Because we were watching them," replied a Nexari delegate. The Nexari were energy beings, their words appearing as text in the air above their containment fields. "What happens when we are not?" "They adapt too quickly," added a Krell military advisor. The reptilian species had been one of Earth's strongest opponents from the beginning. In 2 centuries, they went from wooden ships to faster-than-light travel. No species should advance that fast. "It is dangerous." Sarah finally stood up. The chamber fell silent. "Honored Council," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. "My species has made mistakes. We have fought wars and caused suffering. But we have also learned from those mistakes. We came to the stars not to conquer, but to find our place among peaceful civilizations. Your military buildup suggests otherwise," the Krell advisor hissed. "We build defenses because we know there are threats in the galaxy," Sarah replied. "Pirates, raiders, hostile species that prey on the weak. We refuse to be victims." "And who decides what constitutes a threat?" the Chancellor asked. "You? Your emotional, primitive governments? What happens when you decide that we are a threat?" "That will never happen," Sarah said. "We seek alliance, not domination." "So you say," the Chancellor replied. "But can we trust a species that changes so rapidly? In 50 years, you might be completely different beings. In 100 years, you might have technology that makes our own obsolete. In 1,000 years, he let the words hang in the air. "The Council has made its decision," the Chancellor announced. "All in favor of granting full membership to the human species, raise your voting appendage now." Sarah held her breath. Around the chamber, she could see delegates looking at each other, waiting to see who would vote first. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Not a single vote was cast in favor. "All opposed to membership, vote now." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of arms, tentacles, energy pulses, and other appendages rose into the air. The voting system counted them automatically, the numbers appearing on screens around the chamber. 784 votes against. All abstentions. Vote now. 63 more delegates registered their votes. The final tally appeared on the main screen. 784 against, 63 abstentions, 0 in favor. The chamber erupted in noise as delegates began talking among themselves. Sarah felt numb. It was not just a rejection. It was a complete repudiation of everything humanity had tried to accomplish. Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, raising his voice above the din, the Council votes to place the Sol system under quarantine, effective immediately. No trade, no technology transfer, no communication beyond this final session. The humans will remain confined to their system until they prove they are no longer a threat to galactic peace. You are making a mistake, Sarah said, her voice cutting through the noise. You fear what you do not understand. That fear will be your undoing. The Chancellor's blue glow intensified. Are you threatening this council, human? I am warning you, Sarah replied. You judge us by our past, but you refuse to see our potential. You call us dangerous because we adapt quickly. But that same adaptation will let us survive what is coming. What is coming? The Krell advisor demanded. Sarah looked around the chamber one last time. At the hundreds of species who had just voted to condemn humanity to isolation, at the ancient civilizations who thought they knew better, at the comfortable, complacent galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to struggle. Change, she said simply, whether you want it or not. The Chancellor made a gesture and the transmission link to Earth was severed. The human delegation was escorted from the chamber by Council security forces. As they walked through the corridors of the great station, other species stepped aside, some with fear in their eyes, others with pity. On the transport ship that would take them back to the edge of Council space, Sarah's aide, a young man named Marcus Webb, sat down beside her. What do we do now, Ambassador? He asked. Sarah stared out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, their home, now cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Somewhere out there were humans who had believed that peaceful contact was possible. They would have to be told that their hopes had been rejected. We remember, Sarah said finally. We remember who voted for peace and who voted for fear. We remember who gave us a chance and who chose to condemn us. And when the time comes, she turned to look at Marcus. And he saw something in her eyes that made him understand why the Council had been afraid. When the time comes, we will make sure they remember too. The transport ship turned away from the Council station and began its long journey home, carrying with it the news that would change everything. Behind them, the galaxy continued its ancient routines, confident that it had made the right choice. It would be the last time the galaxy felt truly safe. 5 years had passed since the vote that changed everything. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, life continued as it always had. Trade flowed between star systems. Diplomatic missions traveled from world to world. The ancient bureaucracy that governed 847 species processed requests, settled disputes, and maintained the peace that had lasted for thousands of years. Most council members had forgotten about the humans. The Zephyrian Chancellor had not. Standing in his private office, high above the council chambers, he stared at the holographic display showing the Sol system. A ring of warning beacons marked the quarantine boundary, their red lights blinking steadily as they had for 5 years. Beyond those beacons, the human home system remained hidden from the galaxy. Any reports from the monitoring stations? The Chancellor asked his aide, a young Nexari whose energy field pulsed with nervous blue light. Nothing significant, Your Excellence, the aide replied. Long-range sensors detect normal system traffic, some industrial activity around their asteroid belt, a few ships moving between planets. Nothing that suggests military buildup. The Chancellor nodded, but he did not feel relieved. His species had learned long ago that silence often meant more than noise. What about communication intercepts? The humans went completely silent 18 months ago, the aide reported. No signals leaving the system at all. It is as if they have accepted their isolation. That worried the Chancellor even more. On the other side of the quarantine line, Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching cargo ships dock with their precious loads. What the Council's sensors could not see was that those ships carried more than just supplies. They carried the future of humanity. Marcus was no longer the young aide who had comforted Ambassador Chen on the transport home. 5 years of isolation had changed him, just as it had changed all of humanity. The naive hope of joining a galactic community had been replaced by something harder and more determined. How many ships completed testing this week? Marcus asked his assistant, Dr. Sarah Kim. 47, she replied, consulting her tablet. All systems performed within acceptable parameters. The new drive technology is working perfectly. Marcus nodded. Around them, the massive space station buzzed with activity. What had started as a small research facility had grown into something the Council could never have imagined. Humanity's greatest advantage had always been their ability to adapt. And 5 years of forced isolation had given them time to adapt in ways that would have shocked their former allies. Any word from the Mars facilities? Marcus asked. The weapons testing went better than expected, Sarah replied. The new energy systems are producing power levels 30% higher than our original projections. Through the observation window, Marcus could see more ships arriving from Earth. Not the simple chemical rockets that humanity had used when the Council first made contact, but sleek vessels that moved with impossible grace. Each one incorporated technology that the Council had shared during the diplomatic period, but improved and refined by human engineers who had nothing but time and motivation. Dr. Webb, a voice called from behind him. Marcus turned to see Admiral Chen, Sarah Chen's daughter, approaching with her usual purposeful stride. Like her mother, she had the ability to command attention without raising her voice. Admiral? Marcus nodded. How are the fleet preparations going? Better than we hoped, Admiral Chen replied. The shipyards at Mars are producing 2 new vessels per week. The asteroid mining operations are providing all the raw materials we need. At this rate, we will have over 1,000 ships within 2 years. 1,000 ships. When the Council had voted for quarantine, humanity had possessed fewer than 50 space-capable vessels. Now they were building a fleet that could rival any military force in known space. But that was not the most important change. What about the other project? Marcus asked quietly. Admiral Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The intelligence network is performing beyond expectations. We now have assets in 47 different star systems. Marcus felt a chill of satisfaction. While the Council believed humanity was trapped and isolated, human agents had been spreading throughout the galaxy. Some were refugees who had been outside the Sol system when the quarantine began. Others were volunteers who had found ways to slip past the Council's monitoring systems. All of them were gathering information. What are they reporting? Marcus asked. Exactly what we expected, Admiral Chen replied. The Council is not the peaceful alliance it pretends to be. There are tensions between member species, economic exploitation, military threats against smaller civilizations, and at the center of it all, the hegemony. Marcus finished. It had taken 3 years to uncover the truth, but now humanity knew what the Council really was. On the surface, it appeared to be a democratic organization, where all species had equal voices. In reality, it was controlled by a small group of ancient civilizations who called themselves the hegemony. They used the Council as a front to maintain their power and suppress any species that might challenge their authority. Humanity had been rejected not because they were dangerous, but because they were inconvenient. Any sign that the Council suspects what we are doing? Marcus asked. None, Admiral Chen replied. They are so confident in their quarantine that they have stopped paying attention to us. The monitoring stations file their reports automatically. No one actually reads them anymore. That was the Council's second mistake. Their first had been underestimating human determination. Their second was underestimating human patience. Far from the Sol system, in the trade hub of Nexus Station, a Krell merchant named Vextok was having the worst day of his career. His cargo ship had been attacked by pirates while traveling through the Outer Rim, and he had lost everything. His crew was dead, his ship was destroyed, and he was stranded on a station where no one cared about his problems. That was when the stranger approached him. The being looked humanoid, but Vextok had never seen the species before. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head with 2 eyes and a mouth. Simple features, but there was something about the way the stranger moved that made Vextok pay attention. I heard about your troubles, the stranger said in perfect Krell. I might be able to help. Who are you? Vextok asked. Someone who believes that honest merchants should not have to fear pirates, the stranger replied. What if I told you that your cargo has been recovered and your crew rescued? Vextok laughed bitterly. That is impossible. The pirates destroyed everything. The stranger smiled and handed him a datapad. On the screen, Vextok could see his own cargo hold, filled with the goods he thought were lost forever. In another section, he could see his crew members, alive and well in what looked like a medical facility. "How?" Vextok whispered. "The pirates who attacked you have been dealt with," the stranger said simply. "Your cargo and crew are waiting for you at coordinates that will be provided to you shortly. Consider it a gift from friends who value honest trade." "What friends?" Vextok demanded. "What species are you?" But when he looked up, the stranger was gone, as if he had never been there at all. Similar encounters were happening throughout the galaxy. Pirates found their ships disabled by unknown forces. Merchant vessels under attack were rescued by unidentified ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Small colonies threatened by raiders received anonymous warnings that allowed them to prepare defenses. The rescued always asked the same question: who were their saviors? The answer was always the same: silence. Back on Luna Station, Marcus Webb reviewed the weekly reports from across the galaxy. 47 rescue operations, 15 pirate fleets neutralized, 8 colonies saved from attack. All accomplished by human ships that officially did not exist, crewed by humans who were supposed to be trapped in their home system. "The network is working," he said to Admiral Chen. "Every rescue builds goodwill. Every saved life creates a potential ally. When the time comes, we will not be alone." Admiral Chen finished. Outside the observation window, another ship departed for the quarantine boundary. To Council sensors, it would appear to be a simple cargo vessel returning from the asteroid belt. In reality, it was the newest addition to humanity's growing fleet, equipped with technology that surpassed anything the Council possessed. The galaxy thought it was safe behind its ancient barriers and comfortable traditions. It thought the human threat had been contained and forgotten. It was wrong on both counts. Captain Vexhai of the hegemony cruiser Eternal Judgment was bored. Patrolling the quarantine boundary around the Sol system was supposed to be an important assignment, but nothing ever happened here. The humans had been quiet for 7 years now, accepting their isolation like defeated animals. Most of his crew treated the posting as a vacation, a chance to catch up on sleep and personal projects while collecting full military pay. Vexhai was different. His species, the Krell, had been warriors long before they joined the Council. Something in his blood told him that quiet enemies were often the most dangerous ones. "Captain," his sensor officer called from across the bridge. "I am detecting something unusual." Vexhai looked up from his report pad. "Define unusual." "Long-range sensors are picking up increased activity in the inner system," the officer replied. "More ships moving between planets than we have seen before." "How many more?" The sensor officer checked his readings twice before answering. "Approximately 3 times normal traffic levels." That got Vexhai's attention. He stood up and walked over to the sensor station. "Show me." The main screen lit up with a 3-dimensional map of the Sol system. Dozens of small dots moved between the planets. Far more than the Council's intelligence report suggested the humans possessed. "When did this increase begin?" Vexhai asked. "I started noticing it about 6 months ago," the sensor officer replied. "But it has been gradual. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger automatic alerts." Vexhai studied the display. As a military officer, he recognized patterns of movement. The ships were not moving randomly. They were following organized routes like a supply network or... "Those are patrol patterns," he said quietly. "Captain," the sensor officer asked. "Those ships are not trading or exploring," Vexhai explained. "They are patrolling their system. The question is, what are they protecting?" Before anyone could answer, the ship's alarm began to sound. "Contact!" the tactical officer shouted. "Unknown vessels approaching from the asteroid belt." "On screen," Vexhai ordered. The main display switched to a view of space near the quarantine boundary. At first, Vexhai saw nothing. Then, like ghosts materializing from the darkness, ships began to appear. They were not like anything in the Council database. The human vessels were sleek and angular, with hull designs that seemed to bend light around them. They moved with impossible grace, changing direction without visible thrust or inertia compensation. Most unsettling of all, they had appeared without any sensor warning. "How many?" Vexhai asked, his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. 12. No, 15. Still counting, the tactical officer replied. "Captain, they are surrounding us." Vexhai had commanded warships for over 30 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and rogue states. He knew the difference between a patrol and a trap. "Raise shields," he ordered. "Charge weapons. Captain," the communications officer called out. "We are receiving a transmission." "Put it through." The screen changed to show a human face. A woman with dark hair and calm eyes that reminded Vexai of deep water before a storm. She wore a simple uniform with no visible rank insignia. "Captain Vexai," the woman said, and Vexai was shocked that she knew his name. "I am Admiral Chen of the Terran Fleet. You are trespassing in human space." "This is the quarantine boundary," Vexai replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Established by Council authority. You have no right to order Council vessels away." Admiral Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "The quarantine was imposed to keep us in. We never agreed to stay." "The Council will hear of this," Vexai said. "Violating quarantine is an act of war." "No," Admiral Chen replied. "This is." The human ships moved faster than anything Vexai had ever seen. One moment they were holding position around his cruiser. The next they were everywhere at once, their weapons lighting up space with energy beams that cut through his shields like paper. But they did not fire to destroy. Instead, the human weapons targeted specific systems: engines, weapons, communications, sensors. Each strike was precise, calculated to disable rather than destroy. Within minutes, the Eternal Judgment was helpless, drifting in space with its crew unharmed but its systems completely offline. "Impressive," Admiral Chen said, her image still clear on the emergency backup screen. "Your ship will be repaired and escorted to the edge of this system. You will deliver a message to your council." "What message?" Vexai asked. "Tell them that Earth remembers who voted for war," Admiral Chen said. "We remember who chose peace. And when the time comes, we will remember everything." The transmission ended. Vexai felt his ship shudder as the human vessels attached some kind of tractor beam. Within hours, they had been dragged to the edge of the Sol system and released. His damaged ship limped back toward Council space, carrying news that would change everything. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions were called. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood before the assembled delegates, his blue glow dimmed with worry. "The report from Captain Vexai has been confirmed by 3 other sources," the Chancellor announced. "The humans have not only violated their quarantine, they have developed military technology that surpasses our own." Worried murmurs filled the chamber. The Nexari representative's energy field pulsed with rapid, nervous patterns. "How is this possible? They have been isolated for 7 years. "Apparently," the Chancellor replied, "that isolation gave them time to prepare." The hegemony military advisor, a tall being from the ancient Arcari species, stood to address the chamber. His people had been among the founders of the Council, and their words carried great weight. "We must mobilize the fleet immediately," the Arcari declared. "This threat must be eliminated before it spreads." "With what?" asked a delegate from the Outer Rim. "If the humans can disable a hegemony cruiser without taking damage, what chance do we have?" The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained peace through the threat of overwhelming force. The hegemony fleet was the largest military organization in known space, capable of destroying entire civilizations if necessary, but the humans had made it look helpless. "There is more," the Chancellor continued, his voice heavy with implications. "Our intelligence networks are reporting similar incidents throughout the galaxy. Ships appearing from nowhere to rescue merchant vessels, pirates finding their fleets disabled by unknown forces, colonies receiving aid from unidentified benefactors." "You think the humans are responsible?" a Vorthon delegate asked. "I think the humans have been very busy during their quarantine," the Chancellor replied. In his private chambers, the Arcari military advisor activated a secure communication link. The image that appeared was that of another Arcari, one whose skin bore the ritual scars of the hegemony's inner circle. "The situation is worse than we anticipated," the advisor reported. "The humans are not simply violating quarantine. They have built a fleet." "How large?" the inner circle member asked, unknown. "But if Captain Vexai's report is accurate, they have technology we have never seen before. Stealth systems that can hide entire fleets, weapons that can disable our ships without destroying them, drive systems that allow impossible maneuvers." The inner circle member was quiet for a long moment. "This changes everything. If the humans have advanced this far in 7 years, they represent a direct threat to hegemony authority." "What are your orders?" Activate the deep protocols, the Inner Circle member said. Begin preparation for total war. The humans have made their choice. Now they must face the consequences. The communication ended, leaving the advisor alone with his thoughts. For thousands of years, the hegemony had maintained control through careful manipulation and overwhelming force. They had crushed civilizations that threatened their authority and absorbed others that might be useful. But they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable. Around her, the command crew worked quietly and efficiently, monitoring the human fleet as it prepared for what was to come. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, long-range sensors are detecting increased hegemony fleet movements. It looks like they are mobilizing for war. Admiral Chen nodded. She had expected this response. The hegemony could not allow the human challenge to go unanswered. To do so would invite other species to question their authority. How long until they arrive? She asked. 3 weeks, possibly 4. The tactical officer replied. They are gathering ships from across the galaxy. Good, Admiral Chen said. That gives us time to implement the final phase. The revelation? Her executive officer asked. Admiral Chen smiled. For 7 years, humanity had been gathering information about the galaxy. They knew which species were oppressed, which were exploited, and which were ready to fight for their freedom. They knew about the hegemony's secret control over the Council. They knew about the lies, the manipulation, and the crimes committed in the name of galactic peace. Soon everyone else would know too. Send the signal, Admiral Chen ordered. It is time for the galaxy to learn the truth. The galaxy exploded into chaos on a Tuesday. It started with a simple data packet, transmitted simultaneously to every major communication network in known space. The encryption was so advanced that it took most species several hours to decode it. When they finally did, the contents changed everything. On Nexus Station, the largest trade hub in the Outer Rim, thousands of beings gathered around public displays to watch the information unfold. Financial records, military communications, classified diplomatic cables, all of it painted the same picture. The Galactic Council was a lie. The Zephyrian Chancellor sat in his emergency bunker, watching his life's work crumble in real time. The data packets contained irrefutable proof of what the humans called the hegemony deception. For thousands of years, a small group of ancient species had been manipulating the Council from behind the scenes, using it as a front for their own power. The evidence was overwhelming. Trade agreements that favored hegemony species, military interventions that eliminated potential threats, diplomatic manipulations that kept younger civilizations weak and dependent. All of it documented in the hegemony's own files. How did they get this information? The Chancellor asked his aide, whose energy field was pulsing with panic. Unknown, Your Excellence, the aide replied. Some of these files are from the highest security levels. Only Inner Circle members should have had access. The Chancellor felt cold despite the warmth of his crystal chambers. You mean we have been infiltrated? Before the aide could answer, new data began flooding the networks. This time it was not just documents. It was recordings. Across the galaxy, beings watched in shock as audio and video files played scenes they were never meant to see. Hegemony leaders discussing which species to eliminate. Military commanders planning false flag operations to justify interventions. Economic ministers deciding which civilizations to bankrupt for hegemony profit. The most damaging recording was a conversation between 3 hegemony Inner Circle members from just 2 years earlier. The humans are becoming a problem, one voice said. I told you we should have destroyed them immediately, another replied. This quarantine nonsense was always a mistake. Patience, the third voice counseled. Let them stew in isolation for a few more years. When we finally move against them, no one will question our actions. They will just be another failed species that could not adapt to galactic civilization. Laughter followed, cold and calculating. The recording ended, but its impact was just beginning. On worlds throughout the galaxy, governments fell within hours. The Vorthan Parliament voted no confidence in their hegemony-backed leadership. The Nexari Assembly dissolved itself and called for new elections. Dozens of smaller species declared independence from Council authority, but the reaction was not uniform. Species that had benefited from hegemony favor found themselves under attack by their own people. Collaborator governments tried to suppress the information, only to discover that their communication networks had been compromised. Every attempt to block the data simply resulted in more information being released. The Krell were among the first to act on the revelations. Their warrior culture had always chafed under council restrictions, but they had respected the organization's supposed commitment to peace. Now learning that they had been manipulated into serving as enforcers for a shadow government, their reaction was swift and violent. Krell fleets across the galaxy turned on their hegemony handlers. Battles erupted in dozens of star systems as the reptilian warriors reclaimed their honor through force of arms. Similar uprisings began throughout the galaxy. The Outer Rim, long exploited by hegemony economic policies, exploded into open rebellion. Trade routes were blockaded. Hegemony ships were seized or destroyed. Colonial administrators found themselves facing angry mobs of beings they had oppressed for generations. The Arkari military advisor, who had spoken with the Inner Circle, watched the chaos from his command ship with growing horror. The hegemony fleet, the largest military force in the galaxy, was fracturing as member species turned against their commanders. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving surrender requests from 17 different systems. They say they want to join the Human Alliance." "What Human Alliance?" the advisor demanded. His answer came in the form of a new transmission, broadcast on all frequencies throughout the galaxy. The image that appeared was familiar to anyone who had followed the crisis. Admiral Chen of the Terran fleet. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm and confident. "For too long you have lived under the shadow of deception. The organization you trusted to maintain peace has been nothing more than a tool of oppression, used by a few ancient species to control all others." Behind her, the viewer could see the bridge of a massive warship, with crew members from dozens of different species working side by side. "Today, that ends," Admiral Chen continued. "The Terran Commonwealth offers alliance to any species willing to stand for freedom, equality, and true cooperation. We do not seek to rule you. We seek to stand with you." The transmission included coordinates for rally points throughout the galaxy, where species could send representatives to discuss joining the new alliance. It also included something else: tactical information about hegemony military positions and weaknesses. The advisor realized with growing dread that the humans were not just releasing information. They were coordinating a galaxy-wide revolution. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "we have incoming ships, multiple species converging on our position." The advisor looked at the tactical display and felt his blood run cold. Vorton cruisers, Nexari energy ships, Krell battle fleets, and dozens of other vessels were approaching from all directions. At the center of the formation were the sleek, deadly shapes of human warships. "Are they here to surrender?" he asked hopefully. "No, sir," the tactical officer replied. "They are demanding our surrender." Before the advisor could respond, his ship shuddered under the impact of multiple weapon strikes. But these were not random attacks. Like the encounter with Captain Vexheim months earlier, the strikes were precise, targeting specific systems without destroying the ship. "This is Admiral Chen," a voice announced over the communication system. "Hegemony vessel, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your crew will be treated with dignity. Continue to resist and you will be disabled and boarded." The advisor looked around his bridge at his crew. Most of them were not Arkari. They were beings from dozens of different species who had served the hegemony faithfully, believing they were maintaining galactic peace. Now, learning the truth about their organization, he could see doubt and anger in their eyes. "Sir," his executive officer said quietly, "perhaps it is time to consider that we have been on the wrong side." The advisor wanted to argue, but he could not find the words. Everything he had believed about the hegemony's mission had been lies. Every order he had followed had been part of a vast conspiracy to maintain power for a few, at the expense of many. "Stand down weapons," he ordered. "Signal our surrender." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as hegemony forces found themselves isolated and overwhelmed. Some fought to the bitter end, their commanders too invested in the old system to accept change. Others surrendered peacefully, their crews relieved to finally serve a cause they could believe in. The hegemony's inner circle, meanwhile, had retreated to their ancient strongholds in the galactic core. Protected by automated defense systems and loyal fleets, they prepared for a final battle to preserve their power. "How many ships do we have left?" the lead Inner Circle member asked during an emergency session. Perhaps 300, a military commander replied. Most of our fleet has either surrendered or joined the rebellion. And the humans? Intelligence suggests they have over 1,000 ships plus allied forces from at least 200 species. The Inner Circle member felt a cold fury building in his chest. For millennia, his people had guided galactic civilization. They had prevented wars, maintained order, and ensured prosperity for those worthy of it. Now these upstart humans threatened to destroy everything they had built. If we cannot rule the galaxy, he said finally, then perhaps it is time to teach it the price of defiance. Sir, the commander asked. Activate the Omega Protocol, the Inner Circle member ordered. If the galaxy wants chaos, we will give it to them. The commander's face went pale. The Omega Protocol was the hegemony's ultimate weapon, designed to destroy entire star systems if necessary. It had never been used, but its existence had been the final guarantee of hegemony power. Sir, that will kill billions of beings, the commander protested. Better a galaxy of ashes under our control than a galaxy of freedom under theirs, the Inner Circle member replied. In the Sol system, Admiral Chen received the intelligence report about the Omega Protocol with grim determination. Her human agents throughout the galaxy had uncovered most of the hegemony's secrets, but this was their most dangerous one. How long do we have? She asked her intelligence chief. 72 hours until the weapons are fully charged, the chief replied. They are targeting major population centers throughout the galaxy. Admiral Chen looked out at the stars and thought about the choice before her. She could retreat, save Earth, and let the galaxy burn. Or she could risk everything to stop the hegemony's final atrocity. It was not really a choice at all. Signal the fleet. The final battle for the galaxy lasted only 6 hours, Admiral. Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship as the combined fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the hegemony's core system. Behind her stretched the largest armada in galactic history, 2,000 ships from over 300 species, united under the banner of the Terran Commonwealth. The hegemony had chosen their final stronghold well. The ancient star system was protected by orbital defense platforms that had been built over thousands of years. Massive space stations bristled with weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. At the center of it all was the hegemony homeworld, its surface covered with the gleaming cities where the galaxy's shadow rulers had planned their dominion. Enemy strength? Admiral Chen asked her tactical officer. Approximately 300 ships plus defensive installations, came the reply. But Admiral, they are not moving to engage. They appear to be holding position around the planet. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display with growing concern. The hegemony was not stupid. If they were not deploying their forces defensively, it meant they had another plan. Status on the Omega weapons? She asked. Intelligence reports they are at 90% charge, her communications officer replied. Estimated time to firing 47 minutes. Less than an hour to prevent genocide on a galactic scale. All ships, advance to engagement range, Admiral Chen ordered. But be ready for anything. The Commonwealth fleet moved forward in perfect formation, ships from dozens of different species coordinating their movements with a precision that would have been impossible under the old Council system. Human vessels took point, their advanced stealth and shielding technology providing cover for their allies. As they approached the defensive perimeter, the hegemony fleet finally moved to intercept. But instead of the coordinated resistance Admiral Chen expected, the enemy ships moved sluggishly, their formations loose and disorganized. Admiral, the communications officer called out, we are receiving surrender signals from multiple hegemony vessels. Admiral Chen was not surprised. The revelations about hegemony crimes had shattered the morale of many who had served the organization faithfully. Learning that their life's work had been built on lies and oppression was not something most beings could accept easily. Accept their surrenders, she ordered, but keep scanning for the Omega weapons. The battle, when it came, was swift and decisive. The remaining loyal hegemony forces fought with desperate courage, but they were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Commonwealth ships used their technological advantages to disable rather than destroy, accepting the surrender of enemy crews whenever possible. Within 3 hours, the space around the hegemony homeworld was clear of hostile forces, but the real threat remained hidden on the planet's surface. I am reading massive energy signatures from the northern continent, the sensor officer reported. Multiple locations, all building toward simultaneous discharge. Admiral Chen made the hardest decision of her life. "Prepare orbital bombardment," she ordered. "Target the weapon sites only. Minimal civilian casualties." "Admiral," her executive officer said quietly, "there are still millions of people down there. And there are billions throughout the galaxy who will die if we do not stop this." Admiral Chen replied. "Begin the attack." The Commonwealth fleet opened fire with surgical precision. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the Omega weapon installations with devastating accuracy. Secondary explosions lit up the planet's surface as the ancient weapons overloaded and destroyed themselves. But they were too late to stop all of them. "Omega weapon discharge detected," the sensor officer shouted. "One installation fired before we could destroy it." Admiral Chen felt her heart sink. Even one Omega weapon could destroy an entire star system, killing billions of innocent beings. "Target?" she asked. "The Sol system," the officer replied. "Estimated time to impact 18 hours. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Admiral Chen began to laugh. "Admiral?" her executive officer asked, concerned. "Do you know what the hegemony's final mistake was?" Admiral Chen asked. "They targeted Earth, our home. The one place in the galaxy that has spent 7 years preparing for exactly this scenario." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to Earth Defense Command." The screen lit up with the image of General Martinez, the grizzled veteran who commanded humanity's home defenses. Behind him, Admiral Chen could see the massive control center that coordinated Earth's protection. "Admiral," General Martinez said with a slight smile, "we have been expecting your call. Status of home defenses?" Admiral Chen asked. "All systems operational and ready," the general replied. "The Omega weapon will be intercepted approximately 6 hours before it reaches Earth orbit. The new defensive grid you requested has been online for 2 years." Admiral Chen felt a wave of relief wash over her. While the Commonwealth fleet had been fighting across the galaxy, Earth scientists and engineers had been building the most advanced planetary defense system ever conceived. It had been designed specifically to stop weapons like the Omega devices. "Understood," she said. "Maintain defensive posture until the threat is neutralized." As the transmission ended, Admiral Chen turned her attention back to the hegemony homeworld. The remaining weapon sites had been destroyed, but the planet's leadership remained hidden in underground bunkers. "Signal the surface," she ordered. "I want to speak with whoever is in charge down there." The reply came from the deepest bunker on the planet. The image that appeared was that of an ancient Arcari, his skin bearing the ritual scars of the hegemony's highest rank. "You have won," the hegemony leader said simply. "But do not think this victory will bring you peace. The galaxy needs order. Without us to maintain control, chaos will consume everything." "Maybe," Admiral Chen replied. "But that will be the galaxy's choice to make, not yours." "And what of us?" the leader asked. "Will you execute us as criminals?" Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. The easy thing would be to demand punishment for the hegemony's crimes. The satisfying thing would be to make them pay for the suffering they had caused. Instead, she chose something harder. "You will be tried for your crimes," she said, "but you will be tried fairly, by representatives of the species you oppressed." "Justice, not revenge." The hegemony leader's expression showed surprise. "You would show mercy to your enemies?" "I would show justice to all beings," Admiral Chen replied. "That is what makes us different from you." 6 months later, the new Galactic Commonwealth held its first session in a space station built specifically for the purpose. Representatives from over 400 species gathered in a chamber designed to accommodate every form of life imaginable. The old council chambers had been converted into a museum, a reminder of what happened when fear and prejudice guided galactic policy. On the wall, displayed for all to see, was the vote tally from 7 years earlier. 784 against, 63 abstentions, 0 in favor. Below it was a simple plaque, "In memory of the mistake that changed everything." Ambassador Sarah Chen, now elderly but still sharp, stood before the assembled delegates. Her daughter commanded the Commonwealth fleet, but Sarah had chosen to return to diplomacy, believing that peace could only be maintained through understanding. 7 years ago, this galaxy rejected humanity based on fear, she said. Today we stand together not as rulers and subjects, but as equals. The Commonwealth asks nothing of its members except that they respect the rights of others and contribute to the common defense. The response was not the polite applause of the old council. but genuine enthusiasm from beings who had never before had a voice in galactic affairs. In the audience, former Captain Vexhai of the Eternal Judgment listened with satisfaction. He now commanded a Commonwealth vessel crewed by members of a dozen different species. His ship's mission was simple: protect those who could not protect themselves. Nearby sat Dr. Marcus Webb, his hair now gray, but his eyes still bright with curiosity. He led the Commonwealth's Scientific Council, coordinating research projects that shared knowledge freely among all member species. The session concluded with the formal signing of the Commonwealth Charter, a document that enshrined the principles humanity had learned from their own difficult history. That diversity was strength, that freedom was worth fighting for, and that the measure of a civilization was how it treated its weakest members. As the delegates dispersed to their ships, Admiral Chen stood in the observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars. Her aide, a young Nexari whose energy field glowed with contentment, approached with the day's reports. "The latest membership requests?" Admiral Chen asked. 17 new species want to join," the aide replied, "including 3 former hegemony core worlds." Admiral Chen nodded. The Commonwealth was growing, but carefully. Each new member was evaluated not for their military or economic potential, but for their commitment to the principles of equality and cooperation. "Any word from the outer galaxy?" she asked. "The exploration fleets report contact with 12 new civilizations," the aide said. "All have been offered friendship and aid, with no strings attached." Admiral Chen smiled. This was humanity's true victory, not the conquest of their enemies,